Today, hopefully we're talking about something that you have never heard of yet in witchcraft. Have you ever wondered if a root could be more than just a plant? What if it could be a vessel for a spirit, a familiar, an ally in magic? Welcome to the world of Alraun, a mysterious practice blending ancient herbal lore, spirit work, and witchcraft. Rooted in folklore and mystery, feared by some and beloved by others. Alraun is more than just a curious plant. It is a spirit vessel, a chthonic talisman, and a living magical partner. In today's video, we'll explore the rich history, magical significance, and careful creation of the Alraun, a practice as ancient as it is powerful. But be warned, an Alraun is more than just a poppet. It is a pact for life. Hi, I'm Crystal the Cottage Witch, and today we're going to delve into the lesser discussed topics, discussing the magic and the folklore behind the Alraun. I know that was a super dramatic intro. It wasn't one of my unhinged intros. I couldn't think of anything. I paid the respect to this folklore that it deserves, because as you'll see, this is a very serious thing and it's taken very seriously in the folklore of it. Before I made this video, I tried to check to see how many videos online I could find of this, because I figured that this is such an intriguing and intense part of witchcraft that there was going to be a decent amount of videos on it. So if there was going to be a decent amount of videos, I don't want to recycle what everybody else says, and I don't want to take away any content from them. So I figured, all right, maybe I'll just work it into a video, because most people would probably know what it is. But after I searched it up, guess how many videos I found on this? One. Just one. So I'm very excited to be making this, and I really hope that afterwards you'll find this video worth it, since Alrauns of themselves seem to be a very obscure topic. Though I'm sure you've seen it in film but not realized what it was, but we'll get to that in a second. I also really want to emphasize before we go any further that the folklore and the methods for creating the Alraun are very serious. They're not taken lightly in the beliefs of them. They are not toys. They are not servitors. These are seen as lifetime pacts. Most time being passed down in families, because of this, and the ways that you can't get rid of them, though sometimes you may want to. They also have the ability in the belief and in the folklore to either bless or curse their creator. You can make it, but you can't make it like you. It either will or it won't. Don't worry, we're gonna go into all of this in detail, so don't worry if you're confused right now. But I just wanted to put these disclaimers in case someone stumbles across this video and thinks it'll be fun and that there's some type of chia pet. They're not. Their folklore is held in very high regard with very, very strict rituals and guidelines, and also with very strict things to actually portray and become the host. Like fear-mongering and whatnot is just a very respected folklore, and since I don't see any other videos on this besides that one, I just want to reiterate how deeply this folklore is held, so I do want to give it the respect that it deserves. Now, what exactly is an Alraun? An Alraun actually began as a branch from a rowan tree, but it became entangled with the mandragora, or the Mandrake effigy, which by itself, it's its own separate thing. But a lot of people think that they are the same thing. No offense, buddy. So rituals throughout the centuries have been adapted for it to be a root, and I feel like that is, if people are familiar with the Alraun, they're gonna be familiar with it in the root form, not in the traditional form. So to combine the two to give you a broad definition that would make sense, an Alraun is a tuberous plant matter, such as a stick or from certain roots, that is ritualistically crafted by a magical practitioner that through rigorous rituals becomes a host for a certain type of spirit. That it can now stay like entwined with for basically forever. You're basically creating a living magical ally through certain herbal and planetary correspondences and folklore, as well as spirit working rituals. It's just not making a mandrake root into a poppet and telling it your wishes, or making it in hopes of like intimidating or cursing your enemies. But let's actually get into this and start with the root version first. You know, with like its history, its folklore, its rituals, and how to create one before we move on to the actual traditional version. Now, if you've seen my Herbal Astrology and the Doctrine of Signatures video, some of these roots might make sense to you. And if you're new here or you haven't seen that video, if you're curious about it, you know, it's linked up here and it'll also be in the description. Because I think when it's on TV, it doesn't show up here. Well, that's a weird thought. If you're watching me on a TV, if I'm on a TV right now, like in your living room or in your bedroom. Oh, I never thought about that before. Oh my gosh.
I'm in your house.
Oh my god, that's kind of cool though. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm trying to be serious because this is a very high regard folklore, so I'm trying not to be too much of a silly willy, but it's kind of hard to stifle your own personality. Anyway, the Alraun is seen as very chthonic in nature. I know you can say it with like the C silent, depending on your practice, like you would just say chthonic. But I'm gonna pop the word up on screen right now just in case you pronounce it a different way and you're kind of like, what is she saying? But chthonic's definition verbatim is belonging to or inhabiting to the underworld. Remember, we're dealing with old folklore here, where a lot of people believe that the underworld was actually underground. If you've seen my Ancient Curse Factory video, I'll link it up here and it'll be in the description. Or if you've seen my Leyline, the Folklore of Fairy and Ghost video, you might be seeing how like these paths are connecting again. Remember I said each video is like a little stepping stone. They believe that the underworld was underground. I think that sometimes Alraun, since they have like this type of like chthonic energy to them, that they get lumped in with psychopomps, but they are not psychopomps. Psychopomps are those who guide in newly deceased spirits. Think angels, think of your demons, think of your fae, think of deities, whatever relates to your belief if you have one. Those are psychopomps. Again, remember, the Alraun is not a servitor. It is not a psychopomp. We're working with a very specific spirit. The Alraun is considered to be like old magic, like old spirit work. We're not going to be guiding any spirit to the next level, but we're going to be making a pact, in a sense. Let's start with like the basic root example. So then afterwards we can unpack everything else. While the Mandrake is the most iconic, especially like in the Germanic folklore of it, many other root can be used, like dandelion, bryony, carrot, thistle, even tree root. I personally think that like mullein root and like mullein would be the best example for one. Mulleins root have so many like witchcrafts in them, plus medicinal properties on top of that for the heart and the lungs. And guess what? We're going to be bringing something to life. It should be perfect. Maybe I should just write my own like folklore grimoire of like book of spells thing. But anyway, dandelion is often chosen besides for its shape, but for its connection to Hecate. However, so is mullein. They don't call it our torch for nothing, and it was used in funeral rites. Like it should be anyway. But the point is we want a root that is either already kind of closely resembling a person of the opposite sex as you in the traditional sense. Of course, you could always make it androgynous, or that we can directly carve the root into the shape of a human. I'm inserting this right now. Please keep in mind that Mandrake and bryony are highly toxic. Just to the touch, bryony alone can cause skin irritation. And it has killed cows alone just from them taking a little nibble at the root. And both are very cautioned into coming in direct contact with your skin. And Brainy, it's like caution, even if you are wearing thick gloves to handle it, to severely wash your hands afterwards. Mandrake's toxicity can include hallucinogenics and the slowing of your heart until death. I'm not doing this for fear mongering. I'm just trying to be upfront with you. Don't carve a mandrake with your bare hands, get the sap all over you, and then decide to eat some chicken wings afterwards without washing your hands. Mentioning side effects of herbs and ingredients are important in witchcraft and aren't mentioned enough. In the very first video I ever did, the 10 things I wish I knew before starting my practice, the audio is terrible, but I pop up a list of herbs that even have side effects, even with medications, and it's timestamped, so if you just want to take screenshots of that, and that's from a physician. So, I'm going to add in the list of requirements for the mandrake, since this is mostly what people go by for selecting their root, so take what applies to you. Remember, this is old folklore. It's too many to remember, so I have them written down in notes off screen. That way, if I miss anything, I can keep track of. So if I look off screen, I'm just looking at my computer with my notes on it, because there's a lot. But the root of the mandrake is followed under this following criteria. The root grows under a gallows or over a grave as a result of excretion from the dead. To gather the root, it must be at before dawn or at least at night. It must be a Friday. It must be a new moon. You must face west. You must make the sign of the cross 3 times over the plant. You must offer the plant some of your own blood. You must spill on the plant the urine of a woman or menstrual blood. You must dig up most of the root by digging around it, but leave the very bottom root fibers attached. You must stop up your ears before pulling up the root, otherwise the screams will kill you. You must tie a dog to the root and force the dog to pull it out, sacrificing the dog. I hate that so much. You must bathe the root in a bath of wine or water immediately. You must keep the root in a box decorated to look like a coffin. You must give the root a funerary shroud or burial shroud, funerary. I have to check my notes. You must give the root a funerary shroud. Okay, yes. That is white and or red. You must bathe the root every single Friday with water, wine, milk, honey, and or water and the owner's blood. You must give the root a new shirt on every Friday. You must bequeath the root to your youngest son. We're gonna go back to that in a second because there's a reason why it's so male specific. It's mentioned because like in the traditional sense of making this, it was always done by male magicians, and they would refer to themselves as wizards or as warlocks. Now that term isn't very common because witch is gender neutral. However, some are reclaiming it back. Some are, preferring to go by wizards and warlocks and reclaiming the word for themselves. But however, the practice evolved centuries later for it to be equal men and women. To accept the root, I have to check my notes. Your youngest son, okay, yep, that's what I was going to say. Your youngest son must bury his father with a loaf of white bread and a piece of money. Again, since these started as male-based. And lastly, most importantly, you can buy an Alraun, but you must not sell it for less than what you paid for it. I told you this is a rigorous ritual with serious folklore, and that's only the beginning of it. So an Alraun serves as like a vessel for a spirit, allowing it to inhabit and interact with the physical world. It is essential to try and choose and summon a spirit you trust, such as a familiar, the spirit of the plant in of itself, the specific ancestor, or a spirit ally. If you are confident of it being who it says it is, to be this spirit to enter the body during the ritual, which we're going to go through. But by granting a spirit such a form, its connection here, like in the physical material world, is strengthened. And the Alraun draws power from the care and the offerings that it receives from the witch. Some are part of the witch's own life force, like blood or semen. but also things like milk, honey, alcohol, certain like consecrated oils, etc., to serve and nourish and empower it. And there must be regular feedings of this. The Alraun must be always spoken to like a beloved child. If this, or even if feeding is forgotten or even pushed back just a little bit, this could potentially turn the Alraun against you, amongst other things. The other thing to be wary of is, according to the folklore of this, is once you start thinking and planning of creating an Alraun, you can draw the attention of other spirits around you. Ones that could potentially want a living body again. They could also slip in last second during the ritual and be the one to enter the body of the Alraun, and not the spirit that you've been working with and that you worked with and wanted. You might notice a lot of spirit activity, like around you, around your place, once you start looking into making your own. You may also think that you've been working and have been working with a certain spirit. However, as soon as it enters the Alraun, you realize that you have been deceived. Sometimes even for years, because time means nothing to spirits and entities. Or you thought it was a spirit that you could trust and that you were close with. But now that they have their own body, they might try and make you their puppet, now that they have a form of their power back. Again, this is folklore. I'm not trying to say that this is fact and that this is going to happen to you. This is the folklore of the magic of the Alraun. I find this stuff fascinating. You don't have to have any of this stuff. You don't have to have folklore or anything like that in your practice. I just find this stuff fascinating, and this is my channel, so I want to talk about it with somebody and give you guys maybe some new stuff about witchcraft you guys never heard of. But anyway, once these pacts are made, they are for the rest of the practitioner's life, however long they decide it would be. My tarot thing just knocked. I don't know if my microphone picked that up. Anyway. Now, there are stories of practitioners who have tried to get rid of the Alraun, only to have the Alraun repeatedly show back up in their home and in their coffin. No matter how many times it was destroyed, burned, buried, drowned, given to others for less of a price that they paid for it. And if you ended up using your own blood, oh, good luck with that. Now you can see why it's held in such a high regard. But it's not all as spooky as all this sounds. There are a lot more other stories with Alrauns being passed down for generations, bringing nothing but good luck and blessings and good fortune, money, abundance, and constantly looking out for the family that it's part of, and aiding in every spell and blessing the lives of their practitioners overall. I keep wanting to say creator, but all we're creating is just the body, the vessel, because the spirit already exists. Hence why it's different than from like a servitor puppet or like a servitor doll. But I'm hoping now you can see the type of power you're working with. If you want this, you need to work for it. You need to show the dedication for it. You need to show that you are worthy and you have respect and reverence. It's part of the reason why you must have like a spirit in mind, because part of this folklore is that names are words of power bound to a spirit, an entity, any type of being. That's why it's in like a lot of folklore beliefs that you have to be very, very careful with names, especially full names. And that's why even I think till today, a lot of witches will have a magical name that they practice under. But for the Alraun, you're creating a contract between you and the spirit. This is different than like a spirit possessing like a regular object, you know what I mean? You're making a contract with that specific spirit that you're going to honor it, that you're going to feed it with your own energy. It's different than like a spirit possession, where a spirit has to use its own energy. As long as you keep up your end of the bargain, you're basically sealing the Alraun against all other spirit except for the one that you are working with. Hence why the name is important. Also, make sure that if it's a spirit that you know their behavior. Just saying. I know I don't really get into like spirits in here. You figured I would talk more about it, especially since like I'm a paranormal investigator too. I feel like there's 20 million things and everyone refers to everything by so many different things. So there's technically no right or wrong. There are categories. But anyway, spirit topics and ghosts and entities and all that stuff and wraiths, they're all, that's maybe a video topic for another day. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about before we get to the ritual is how to store your Alraun. The most appropriate place for your Alraun to rest is a coffin. Now you can get a ginormous, or not even, it doesn't even have to be ginormous, but you could get like a coffin box or make a box and shape it to look like a coffin. You could craft one out of wood. You could craft one out of popsicle sticks. All my coffins hanging around, the one next to the voodoo doll right there, it's made out of popsicle sticks. You can make a coffin box out of popsicle sticks. You could use a shoebox. But regardless of whatever you do to make it look like a coffin, it has to be ornate. This is where your Alraun rests. It should not be in a place where it's like shoved away and hidden, or it's going to have like a lot of commotion and like disturbances happening around it, or somewhere where it could be easily forgotten about. You should have a place for it where it can be like revered, where it could be admired and easy to access and work with. A place to be able to like light candles for it, and an easy spot for it to be fed and bathed. There is also your burial shroud for it, your funeral shroud for it, which it's gonna lay on and be wrapped up in. But regardless, be sure that when you're making the coffin and you're making like the funeral shroud and the wrap for everything, that you're not seeing it as like an obligation or a chore, since the Alraun is going to be sitting in this energy of it. And remember, you're going to have to bathe them and dress your Alraun in a lot of new shrouds and robes often. So do keep that in mind. Okay, so for the first type of the Alraun, we went into the types of roots, the criteria they have to be found under, the good, the bad, the storage, and the type of lifelong commitment you would be looking at. So let's get into the ritual. Yeah, we didn't even get into the ritual yet, but this ritual is going to be every day for a full lunar cycle. So you're going to be doing this like 28 days. So definitely like not as long as like a Amber Melon ritual, but it's still a decent length of time for doing some things and making sure that you're able to do these things every single night. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm gonna have to pull up my notes off to the side just in case I forget something, and that way I can look over them, because there's a lot. So I'm not sure how much of it I have committed to memory, since it's been forever since I talked about this, but let's get into the ritual. Let me pull up some notes. Now, the first thing, I had to check my phone for the notes, so I completely changed the angle. Hold on, let me fix this. Now, the first thing you have to do is decide what type of root you're going to use, where it is, all that. So here's where the Mandrake, Alraun folklore is a bit different than the traditional Alraun, as you'll see a little bit later on once we get to that one. But once you choose your route, you would go out onto the cover of night, or way before dawn, on a new moon, on a Friday, if you want to do every folklore aspect, but the new moon is the most important part of it. And then either with your wand, your finger, azimate, staff, stang, bowline, etc., make a sigil, burn it up, crush it into powder, and use that to make the circle. You're going to draw a circle around the root. So the root's still going to be in the ground. We're going to use my little mandrake friend that my friend gave me. I don't even know what this is from. I think he's just like a random plant thing. but the root's going to be in the ground and you're going to have the leaves and you're going to draw a circle around it clockwise. Now, as you're doing this, you're going to announce yourself to the plant as a magical practitioner. Make sure you let it know your intent and plead your case to it so it has no reason to turn against you or disagree with you. Once you have pled your case, carefully dig up the plant without damaging it. Remember what we talked about before, if there's like little bits of the roots that are like small and fragile, you could leave that back as like a live offering. But after you remove the plant, you want to make sure that you leave a decent offering. Like anything that was like mentioned earlier, like the blood, the milk, the honey, etc. Like any of that you're going to be giving the Alraun from this point on, as its offering. But here is the tricky part. You're going to bury the offering or pour the offering into the hole that you just made without looking, like at the hole. And then you're going to turn around and walk away without looking back. And you're going to walk to the next spot, which we're going to discuss. That's just step one. Now, what we're going to do next is transplanting. The most common places to rebury your Alraun are a church or a graveyard or a crossroads. But if you can't rebury it there, because remember, you're going to be burying it in a place where you're constantly having to go back and interact with it. If you can't bury it there, you could bury it on your own property, either in a pot or in your garden. So you're going to take your root to the place. Sorry, friend, he doesn't want to stay here. I know. He normally hangs out on my Voynich manuscript on top of the book. Since there's a lot of like plant people in it, I show clips of it in my apothecary video. But you're going to take your root to the place that you're going to be transplanting it. And now we're going to carve it. Carve it. So the tradition states that you ought to carve it in the opposite sex as you, or you could do it androgynous, you can make it into like a hermaphrodite. If none of those resonate with you, because this is really old folklore. But whatever you decide to carve it as, you want to take your time carving it. And you want to make sure that you're going to be very, very careful with it, because you don't want to over-carve it and you don't want to kill it. Destroy the root. Here, you're making the body for the spirit. You could carve any sigils related to the spirit. You can make a bind rune for it. You could carve its name into it. But after it's carved, we're going to do the invocation. Now, the invocation is going to be tailored to you and the type of spirit that you're going to be working with. So please keep that in mind. But you're going to start with, either way, creating sacred space, cast an actual circle, make a ritual space, lay a compass, or do whatever it is, because we need to lay down the barrier for like a big working. So when you're doing a big working like this, it's part of the folklore tradition to lay down that barrier. Sorry, I'm getting very hot. It's very warm in here with this light, so I'm getting not paying attention to my accent. So it's gonna come out. But anyway, after you cast a circle, or you lay a compass, or just invoke whoever it is that you work with to create that barrier, you're going to take this moment and pay attention to the root. Then you're going to begin invoking the specific spirit that you trust, that you know well, you know their name, you know their mannerisms, whoever it is that you're going to be placing into the Alraun. Call them by name, allowing only that spirit to enter in that sacred space. Once you know that the spirit is there through whatever connection that you have with them, now this is the part where it turns semi into a funeral. You're going to speak out loud, besides the name, the characteristics of that particular spirit that you're going to be working with. And again, keep calling it by name. It's very important that you're constantly calling it by name, so the Alraun knows its essence that it's going to be in. You know what I mean? As well as now binding it to it. Show the root that you carved for it. Show it its new body. Let them know the amount of time you spent thinking about this. Why you chose this specific root in this specific place. Was it for herbal correspondence? Was it for planetary correspondence? If it has astrological assignments, specific meaning, deity assignments, and all that jazz. Let them know about the coffin you made them and the amount of time and effort you put in all of this. Let them feel the respect that you have poured in all aspects for them. Just make sure you're not doing it in a manipulative or like guilt trippy way. You know what I mean? We don't want to offend either like the plant, like host body, or the spirit or any other close spirit and have them jump in there and then ruin our lives. But then make your pact, pledge your honor, regular feedings, acts of service. Just remember that this is for life, and don't make any promises that you know you can't keep. But make sure that the spirit knows that this root is just for them. It's going to be its body. You just want to make sure that there are no loopholes. Then start to create the image of a door in your head, or like a portal or an entrance. Tell the spirit that you're going to help them get into their new home, where they're going to grow into until you reach out to them again. Feel your power built. I can hear I'm so hot. I am so sorry. These lights are like 1,000,000 degrees in here. Oh, I sound so crash. Okay. Feel your power build up in whatever way feels right to you, or however you do it, while still holding on to the root. And right as you feel like your power is going to be released, you would call out to that spirit to go through that door, slamming it shut right behind them, and then release your power into the root that you're holding. It is so warm in here. I got to change. You guys aren't even going to be able to understand me. I sound like Lois Griffin right now. I'm not feeding into the Rhode Island and Italian stereotype accents. I'll be right back. Now I'm in like pajamas, but I feel so much better. But after you picture that door, you want make sure that the spirit is going to go through that door, then slamming it shut behind them, releasing your power into the root. And then you're going to rebury it that same night before the sun rises. And we're going to water it. We're spiritually growing it. Now, every day, or at the bare minimum, and risking it in some folklore aspects of it, once a week, you're going to come back at night to where you buried the root and feed it. So when you bury it, you want to make sure that, the leaves are sticking out so you could kind of mock where it was. So wherever you choose to bury it, that's how you would find it. But when you feed it, you would feed it with either like your blood mixed in with some distilled water, wine, urine, semen, milk, honey, oil, etc. I should mention that if you are making it for yourself, it does always have to be your own blood. Now, maybe at this point, this is maybe sounding familiar to you. Maybe you're thinking, I feel like I've seen this in a movie before. Chances are you have. If you've seen Pan's Labyrinth, that is. Mandragoras and Alrauns were believed to help with childbirth, especially difficult ones. If you remember the little root poppet, under the bed, sitting in the milk, that she fed her blood to, that was an Alraun. She was making one to help her mom. Pretty cool, right? It's not just a mandrake root. But anyway, we're not even done with the ritual yet. So every night for the next full lunar cycle, or if you choose to go once a week, but in total, 28 days, you're going to go out, draw your circle around it, feed it, water it when it looks like it needs it, and speak your devotions to it. Now, if the leaves kind of look like they're dying, there's like a lot of beliefs in it that the energy is full, like all the energy of the plant is going into the root. So it's okay if the leaves die, if you think that something's going to happen to it. So I just want to put that disclaimer. Now, after those 28 days has passed and you're on the next new moon, you're going to dig up the Alraun. And then again, when you take it out of the dirt, you're going to bury an offering in the hole without looking at it and bring it back home. Once you bring it in, gently clean it up a little bit, bathe it in some wine, but you want to make sure that you get like the dirt and how sometimes they get little hairs on them from roots from being in the dirt. You want to get off all that extra so it just remains what you carve. Then you can gently bake it in the oven on a bed of vervain leaves, to help dry it out. Or if you want, you could put it in like a paper bag, like how some people dry out their herbs too, but fill it with vervain leaves and then put it in a place to dry. But either way, you still want it to be in mixing with vervain, even even if you're just passing it through the smoke of vervain, because it is known as the enchanter's herb, so it is part of the folklore. And then after another month, you should have a perfectly dry Alraun. Place it to rest in its coffin, showing it its coffin, and then begin working with it and giving it its acts of service for now, for the rest of your life. Working with the Alraun can also give you whispers of the future, aid in magical workings, give you warnings, watch over your space, add magic to spell work, so you can make them from anything from divination to having just like a general thing. Their possibilities are endless. Just don't take it for granted and don't ever stray from the pack. Now for the traditional Alraun, this was made from a rowan tree branch. There are some similarities between this and the Mandrake root effigy. You would find a rowan tree and create a circle around it. Again, either by drawing, sigil powder, stones, whatever it is, but you would actually make a circle, not just like cast a circle, but you would make a circle around the rowan tree. And as you're doing this, you're going to like vision and like decide what branch of the rowan tree you're going to be taking. Because once you pick that one, you can't stray, but you have to make sure that you know which one that you're going to pick. You give your offerings to that tree every single night until the full moon. On the night of the full moon, you would take a ritual knife or a knife you blessed. Athames aren't really serrated, so it'd be really hard to cut like a branch, but you want to find some like a knife or something to cut the branch off. And you want to bless the knife specifically for this cause. And you would cut the branch from the tree. If there's like a few branches tied together, you could fasten it into like a figure, like having like arms, or if it branches off, you could have like a long part, like you know how the old dowsing rods used to look like. Remember we went over that, how it was a stick that was forked. You could have the top part be the head and the bottom part be the legs, or if it goes the other way and just going down, then those parts could be the arms. Or like I said, you could fasten some of them together, but then you want to start to carve it. And again, this is what follows the same thing. Normally they were done by males, so they would make it into the shape of a female, because it's believed that you should be working with the spirit the opposite of you with the folklore. But either way, once you take the branch and you start carving it, when you're done, again, you turn and walk away without looking back. When you get home, if you want to fine tune and carve it some more, you could do that too. But then you would call that spirit into that branch, like how we did the first time, envisioning the door or portal, any kind of opening way in order for the spirit to pass by into it, and making sure that nothing else gets into it and directly into the branch. And then that night you would sleep with it like it was your lover, in a way that it was always like facing you, and you must always be facing it and holding on to it throughout the night. So you would be cuddling it basically all night. And then after that night, you would put it back into its coffin. You'd still make the coffin. All that other stuff is the same. The traditional sense is just way less strict than the Mandrake folklore. And now you know the folklore of Alrauns and how to make them. Did you guys like this? I'm not sure if it's helpful or educational or inspirational or just like entertainment, but like this is the stuff that I wanted to start talking about, because when it comes to like witchcraft and folklore and the occult and magical practices, there are so many things that like I don't see mentioned online. And I find it all completely fascinating. Like, I know some people don't work with folklore. You don't have to work with folklore at all. I just love folklore. That's me. That's me in my practice. So since this is my channel, I like to talk about it. But still, I think that they're fun to talk about. I don't know if they were fun or entertaining to you. So I would love the feedback if you guys like stuff like this, because there is a lot more that I want to talk about. But if you guys, that's not your bag, completely understandable. So like let me know down below, and if you like the video, like the video and all that jazz. But anyway, let's move on. I do want to put out a regular herbal identification guide or like foraging guide, but there are a lot out there. So I thought I would add a Crystal the Cottage Witch twist. That makes me sound so egotistical. I don't mean it like that. I'm not very dainty, and I'm okay with that. So I definitely won't be able to be the best at making an aesthetically pleasing herbal identification guide for witchcraft purposes, but I would love to do an unhinged witchcraft herbal purpose and identification video, but it will be very, very unhinged, and you'll see full feral goblin forest crystal in all of her glory. And once you see that, there's not really any coming back from that. So I'm not ashamed of myself, but I just wanted to give you guys the heads up of that. And I'm also still trying to plan some of my investigations this year. So again, as you guys know, I'm a paranormal investigator. And some of you guys said that you guys would be interested in seeing some of my investigations on here. I don't have currently, there is nothing residential. However, that would most likely be the fine line. We've had, like, I've been on other places where they didn't mind being filmed, or things didn't mind being shared. This consent forms and all this stuff. No PII, personal identification information is given out or anything else like that. It's just more of what's happening, what we do, or like, well, how I do things and go in there. So if I end up doing a residential, I can't promise that it would be something that I would be able to share, because that is not up to me to share. So I am looking to add these to the channel if you guys are still interested in seeing them. I also, again, want to try out the Scrying Mirror REM pod that I got. The second time I was working with it, again, very quick burst. It was like the two, like, so my phone will set it off sometimes. If I get a text from an Android, it set it off. But if I get text from an iPhone, it doesn't set it off, which I thought that was very interesting. So I don't know what that's about, because like all the other REM pads I have, it doesn't matter like who texts who. If there's any text message, it'll trigger it. If there's a car driving by with like satellite radio, it will trigger it. If you're using a walkie-talkie, it will trigger it. For that one, getting iMessages does not trigger it, but getting Android does. So maybe it has something to do with like the service, and maybe like it's maybe because the radius isn't as big for that REM pod. Anyway, I don't have to give my theories and stuff like that to you, but I was also thinking about trying that again on this channel, but going a little bit more in depth. But I'm not sure if that would make anybody uncomfortable, because I know people have different beliefs. If I was to share like my spirit communication that I do, because I know some people feel very uncomfortable at the thought of like inviting whatever's around into their space. And if I was saying it out loud, I don't know. Anyway, I'm ranting and raving about nothing. Oh, please let me know if you guys want more contact like this, or if you just want me to go back just to strictly witchcraft and no folklore or nothing else like that. But anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day, night, energy, space, whatever it is that it may be when you are watching this. And I really, truly hope that good things happen to you. Bye.